The offer hung in the air of Tywin Lannister's solar, thick and cloying as incense. It was a gilded cage, and Jaime Lannister, at 17, was the only one who couldn't seem to see the bars. "A white cloak," Jaime said, his voice brimming with a feverish pride that grated on his father's ears. "One of the 7, a personal guard to King Aerys himself." Tywin Lannister did not look up from the letter he was reading. The silence was a weapon, one he had honed over decades. He let his son stand there, shifting his weight, the glorious dream slowly souring in the quiet of the cavernous room. Finally, he set the parchment aside, the motion precise and deliberate. His eyes, pale green flecked with gold, found Jaime's. They were the same eyes, but one pair held the fire of a furnace, the other, the chill of a tomb. "He is not honoring you," Tywin said, his voice a low rumble. "He is taking my heir, he is neutering my house, and you are celebrating it as a prize." Jaime's jaw tightened. "It's the highest honor a knight can achieve, to protect the king, to live a life of pure duty, to be a legend. Arthur Dayne, Gerald Hightower, I would be their brother." "You are a Lannister of Casterly Rock," Tywin corrected him, the words like chips of ice. "You will command armies. You will rule the Westerlands. You will marry a suitable bride and continue our line. Your duty is here, to this rock, to our name. The king offers you a celibate life of servitude as a glorified doorguard because he fears me. He fears what our house has become, and he means to end it with you. He will take my son, my future, and leave me with a dwarf." The cruelty of the final word was intentional. It was meant to shock Jaime out of his romantic stupor. Jaime flinched. He thought of Tyrion, but more, he thought of Cersei. This was about Cersei. Joining the Kingsguard meant being in King's Landing, close to her, always. It was the unspoken reason, the burning core of his desire. His father could not know that. He could never know. "I will not be a pawn in your games with the king," Jaime retorted, his voice rising. For the first time, Tywin's expression shifted. It was not anger. It was something closer to disappointment, which was infinitely worse. He rose from his chair and walked to the great window overlooking the sunset sea. The light caught the gold threads in his crimson doublet, making him seem to burn. "You think this is a game," Tywin said, his back to his son. "Aerys Targaryen is a diseased animal. He sits on a throne of knives and imagines every shadow holds a blade meant for him. I have spent 20 years turning this realm from a beggar's court into an empire, and he rewards me by trying to steal my son's future. He does not want Ser Jaime Lannister, the valiant knight. He wants to see Tywin Lannister's boy in a white cloak, with no wife, no lands, and no children. He wants to see my legacy die." He turned back, his gaze pinning Jaime to the floor. "I will not allow it. I will not allow you to throw away your birthright for a child's fantasy of glory." Tywin returned to his desk, but instead of sitting, he unlocked a small, heavy drawer. He removed a rolled charter, tied with a golden ribbon. He slid it across the polished oak. "You want glory? You want command? Here it is." Jaime stared at the charter. He did not touch it. "What is it?" "Your commission," Tywin said. "Lord Commander of the Armies of the West, effective immediately. You will answer to no one but me. You will oversee the garrisons at Lannisport, the Golden Tooth, and Castamere. You will have 10,000 men under your direct command. You will learn to wield power, not just a sword. You will learn how it feels to have the lives of thousands in your hand. to be responsible for the prosperity and security of this land. That is real duty. That is a legacy. A white cloak is a beautiful shroud. I am offering you a throne." Jaime's heart hammered in his chest. A life of adventure, of being near Cersei, against this. The weight of it was terrifying. Real command, real power. Not a dream, but the cold, hard steel of reality. He thought of the king's madness, the glint of paranoia in his eyes the last time he'd been to court. He thought of his father's words, "He's taking my heir." For the first time, he saw the truth in them. The offer wasn't an honor. It was a gelding knife. His hand, the one that had so longed to grip the hilt of a pale, enameled sword, reached out and took the charter. He felt its heaviness. He broke the ribbon and unrolled it. The words were there, stark and official. Lord Commander Jaime Lannister. "I will write to the king myself," Tywin said, his voice devoid of triumph. It was merely a statement of fact. "I will inform him that you have chosen to accept a position of greater responsibility and service to your family and the Westerlands. Then I will resign the handship. My business in King's Landing is concluded." Jaime looked up, the parchment trembling slightly in his grasp. "And Cersei?" "Your sister will return to Casterly Rock with me," Tywin stated. "It is past time I found her a suitable match." The words were a dagger in Jaime's gut. He had made his choice. He had chosen the West. He had chosen his father. And in doing so, he had just lost the one thing he truly wanted. The gilded cage had vanished, only to be replaced by another, larger and colder, with a view of the sea. The next 4 years reforged Jaime Lannister. The boy who had dreamed of tourneys and glory died a slow death under the unforgiving Westerland's sun. He spent months on the training grounds of Lannisport, his Valyrian steel sword a blur. But he wasn't just dueling. He was sparring with grizzled veterans, learning the brutal, efficient economy of a real battlefield. He learned that a sword was useless if the men wielding them were starving. His uncle, Kevan Lannister, became his shadow. A quiet, unassuming man who understood logistics better than any man in the 7 kingdoms. Jaime spent endless nights in Kevan's study, poring over supply ledgers, grain silo reports, and road maintenance schedules. "An army is a beast with 1,000 bellies, Jaime," Kevan would say, his finger tracing a trade route on a map. "If you can't feed it, it will eat you instead." Jaime hated it. The numbers bored him. The details suffocated him. But he learned. He learned because every time he delivered a report to his father, Tywin would read it in silence, give a single, curt nod, and dismiss him. That nod became the only praise Jaime craved. It was worth more than the adoration of 1,000 small folk. He was becoming the heir Tywin wanted, and the transformation was as painful as it was profound. He was still arrogant, still possessed of a swordsman's swagger, but now it was tempered by the cold weight of command. He spoke less and listened more. He saw the world not as a stage for his own glory, but as a complex machine of power, coin, and loyalty. Cersei was a ghost haunting the halls of Casterly Rock. Returned from the capital, she was more beautiful and more bitter than ever. The distance between them grew into a chasm. He was the Lord Commander, the celebrated heir. She was the broodmare, paraded before a succession of grasping lords her father deemed unworthy. She resented his freedom, the power he was being given. He resented her resentment. Their stolen moments became infrequent, fraught with a tension that had never existed before. The easy intimacy of their youth was gone. replaced by the sharp edges of their new realities. Then came the Raven from King's Landing. Rhaegar Targaryen had abducted Lyanna Stark. Brandon Stark had ridden south and screamed for the prince to come out and die. King Aerys had arrested him, summoned his father, and burned both Starks alive. Then he had demanded the heads of Robert Baratheon and Eddard Stark from Jon Arryn. The realm was catching fire. Tywin summoned Jaime to the Solar. The great map of Westeros was spread across the table. "The wolves, the stags, and the falcons have risen," Tywin said, his voice calm, analytical. "The dragons are shrieking for blood. The storm is here." "We should declare for the king," Jaime said instantly. It was a matter of duty, of loyalty to the crown. Tywin looked at him, and for a moment, Jaime felt like the boy of 17 again. "The king is a rabid dog. Robert Baratheon is a drunken fool who will likely get himself killed. Eddard Stark is an unknown quantity, and Jon Arryn is a cautious old man. We will do nothing." "Nothing?" Jaime was incredulous. "We have the strongest army in the realm, save perhaps the Reach." "Which is precisely why we will keep it here," Tywin said, placing a golden lion figurine squarely on Casterly Rock. "Let them bleed each other. Let the dragons and the stags tear at each other's throats. When the fighting is done, the victor will be wounded, exhausted, and in desperate need of allies. And we will be there, fresh and strong, to dictate the terms of the peace." He looked at Jaime, his eyes holding a new light. Not pride, but assessment. "Your command is no longer a training exercise. Mobilize the banners. Fortify the Golden Tooth. Let no army, royal or rebel, cross our borders. The fate of the Westerlands is in your hands. Do not fail me." For the next year, Jaime Lannister was the Warden of the West in all but name. He rode from fort to fort, drilling his men, securing his supply lines, and turning away ravens from both sides. He felt the weight of his father's trust, like a physical mantle on his shoulders. The rebels won a victory at the Stony Sept. The Royalists, led by Lord Connington, were defeated at the Battle of the Bells. The war raged, a bloody tide that broke against the mountains of the West and went no further. Then came the news of the Trident. Rhaegar Targaryen was dead, slain by Robert Baratheon's warhammer. The royal army was shattered. The path to King's Landing was open. The Raven from Tywin arrived at dusk. It contained a single command: march. Jaime led 12,000 Lannister men out of the west. They were fresh, well-fed, and gleaming in their crimson and gold armor. They were a tide of steel and discipline, and they moved with a speed that shocked the war-weary riverlands. As they marched, Jaime felt a strange sense of destiny. He was not a sworn brother in a white cloak, a silent sentinel. He was a conqueror, leading his father's army to claim a kingdom. They arrived before the gates of King's Landing to find the city in a state of panic. The remnants of the Targaryen host had fallen back within its walls. The gates were barred. King Aerys was trapped inside, and the whole city could smell his fear. Jaime made his camp on the plains, his golden banner snapping in the wind. He was preparing for a siege, a long, ugly affair. He knew what Aerys was. He knew the man was capable of anything. Whispers reached his camp from Varys's agents within the city. Whispers of pyromancers, of caches of wildfire hidden beneath the streets. The Mad King would see his city burn before he let another sit his throne. Jaime was not inside the Red Keep. He was not bound by an oath to protect the man who was threatening to incinerate 500,000 people. His choice was not one of honor, versus morality. It was a commander's choice, how to take the prize with the least cost to his own men and his family's future. A direct assault would be costly. Starving them out would take too long. Robert's army was only days behind them. On the third night of the siege, a hooded figure was brought to his tent. The man offered no name, only a message from the Master of Whisperers. "Lord Varys believes the king's madness will consume you all," the man whispered, his face hidden in shadow. "He has ordered the pyromancers to light the wildfire caches. The city will be an inferno by dawn." Jaime's blood ran cold. "Why tell me this?" "Because Lord Varys serves the realm," the man said smoothly. "And the realm requires a new king, not a pile of ash. He offers you a way in, the mud gate. The guards have been bribed, but he asks a boon." "Name it," Jaime said, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. "Princess Elia and her children. They are hostages in Maegor's holdfast. Lord Varys believes their murder would create a century of war with Dorne. He asks that you secure them. See that they come to no harm." Jaime stared into the darkness where the man's face should be. This was the moment. His father's orders had been simple. Take the city. Tywin had not specified how, nor had he mentioned the fate of the royal family. Tywin would likely see them as expendable, a loose end to be tied. But Jaime, the commander, saw the cold, brutal logic in Varys's request. A living Elia was a bargaining chip. A dead Elia was a martyr. Killing her children would sow dragon's teeth that would sprout into spears for generations. It was a more sophisticated play than simple butchery. It was the kind of move his father would respect, even if he would not have ordered it himself. "Tell your master he has a deal," Jaime said. He chose 500 of his best men. Under the cover of darkness, they moved like ghosts towards the city's southern wall. The mud gate creaked open as promised. Jaime was the first one through. The stench of the city, of fear and filth, washed over him. He was not here to defend a king. He was here to end one. He divided his force. He gave command of 400 men to Sir Adam Marbrand, one of his most trusted captains. "Maegor's holdfast," he ordered. "Secure the princess and her children. Harm a single hair on their heads, and I'll have yours. Hold the fortress until I arrive." Jaime took the remaining 100 men and spurred his horse towards the Red Keep. They galloped through the sleeping streets, the clatter of their hooves the only sound. They were a golden arrow aimed at the heart of the Targaryen dynasty. He had to reach the throne room. He had to stop the pyromancers. They met little resistance. The city watch, leaderless and terrified, melted away before them. They stormed the Red Keep, cutting down the few Kingsguard who stood their ground. Jaime felt a pang of regret as he parried a blow from Ser Jonathor Dari. These were the men he had once dreamed of calling brothers. Now he was their enemy. He burst into the throne room to a scene of pure madness. The Iron Throne loomed like a beast of twisted metal, and before it, King Aerys paced, his hair wild, his fingernails long and yellowed. He was screaming at his hand, the pyromancer Rossart. "Burn them! Burn them all! Let Robert be king over charred bones and cooked meat." When Aerys saw Jaime, his eyes lit up with insane relief. He did not see a Lannister conqueror. He saw a Kingsguard knight, albeit in the wrong armor. "Lannister, you are here. Good. Slay these traitors. Kill your father for me," Aerys shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at Rossart. Jaime didn't hesitate. He had no oath to this man. "Seize the pyromancers," he commanded his men. They swarmed forward, and Rossart was wrestled to the ground before he could flee. The king's face contorted, shifting from relief to confusion, and then to pure, unadulterated fury as he realized the betrayal. This was not his protector. This was his doom. He shrieked like a damned soul and lunged, not at Jaime, but at a decorative torch on the wall, trying to set the tapestries ablaze. One of Jaime's guardsmen, a stout man-at-arms from Lannisport, moved to intercept him. Eris, impossibly quick, drew a hidden dagger and slashed at the man. The guard grunted, stumbled back, and then ran the king through with his spear. Aerys Targaryen II, the Mad King, fell in a heap at the foot of his throne, his blood pooling on the marble floor. Jaime stood there, sword in hand, but it was clean. He had not struck the blow. He had not broken a single vow. He was merely a witness to the squalid end of a tyrant. He felt a profound, hollow emptiness. He had stopped a massacre, conquered a city, and overthrown a dynasty, but there was no glory in it, only the smell of blood and fear. He walked to the Iron Throne and sat down, the cold steel biting through his breeches, to await his father. Tywin Lannister rode into a city that was subdued, not sacked. He found his son not in the throne room, but in the courtyard of Maegor's Holdfast, standing guard himself before the door behind which Princess Elia and her children were being held. Jaime's face was grim, his armor splattered with the blood of other men. "The king is dead," Jaime reported, his voice flat. "The pyromancer plot was stopped. The city is yours." Tywin's eyes swept over the scene. He saw the discipline of the Lannister soldiers, the secured Targaryen loyalists, the absence of widespread fire and looting. He saw Sir Adam Marbrand organizing patrols. He saw control. He saw victory. Then his eyes landed on the door to the Holdfast. "And them?" Tywin asked. "Alive, as per the terms of our entry," Jaime said, meeting his father's gaze without flinching. Before Tywin could respond, a new sound echoed through the city, the war horns of the Baratheon army. Robert arrived an hour later, his armor dented, his face flushed with victory and rage. He stormed into the Red Keep, Ned Stark at his side, and bellowed for the Dragonspawn. Tywin met him in the throne room. Robert's fury was a tangible thing. "Where are they, Lannister? Where are Rhaegar's get? I'll kill every last one of them." "They are my captives," Tywin said, his voice cutting through Robert's rage like glass. "They are alive and unharmed." "Alive?" Robert roared. "After what Rhaegar did, they are his flesh, his blood. I will not suffer them to live." Ned Stark stepped forward. "Robert, they are only children." "Children who could grow up to challenge my throne," Robert spat. "Precisely," Tywin said, and the word silenced them both. He stepped closer to Robert, his presence utterly commanding. "Princess Elia and her children are more valuable to you alive than dead. Their deaths would mean eternal war with Dorne. Doran Martell is not a man to forgive such a thing, but as your hostages, they ensure his loyalty. They are the guarantee of peace in the South. A king needs peace more than he needs vengeance." Tywin let the cold logic settle. "You have won the throne, Lord Baratheon, but a throne is worthless without a stable kingdom to rule. I have given you that. I have given you this city, intact. My armies hold it. I offer you my alliance, my gold, and my daughter's hand to seal our pact and unite the great houses." Robert stared at Tywin, his chest heaving. The bloodlust was still in his eyes, but the pragmatism of a king was beginning to dawn. He looked at Ned, who nodded slowly. "A peaceful Dorne. The Lannister coffers. a beautiful queen to give him heirs. It was everything he needed. Fine, Robert grunted, the word torn from him. Have it your way, Lannister. Exile them. Send them to Dragonstone. Let them rot there. But if they ever plot against me, I'll finish the job myself. Tywin Lannister inclined his head. The new order was forged. Elia, Aegon, and Rhaenys were sent to Dragonstone, prisoners in all but name. Robert Baratheon was crowned king, and Cersei Lannister became his queen. Years passed. The Seven Kingdoms knew a strained peace under Robert's rule. A peace bought with Lannister gold and held together by Tywin's cunning as Hand of the King. Jaime Lannister returned to the Westerlands, not as a disgraced Kingslayer, but as the celebrated savior of King's Landing, the commander who had taken the capital with minimal bloodshed. His father rewarded his duty and competence with a cage of his own making. To cement the new alliances, Tywin married Jaime to Lisa Tully. Jaime did not protest. He had learned his lessons in obedience. He did his duty. He bedded his nervous, simpering wife, and she gave him a son, a pale, sickly boy with Tully blue eyes and none of the Lannister fire. Jaime became Lord of Casterly Rock in all but name, while his father ruled the realm from the capital. He was powerful, respected, feared. He commanded the loyalty of the West, and his counsel was sought by lords from the arbor to the wall. He had everything a man could want: a title, an heir, wealth beyond measure, and a reputation for martial prowess and shrewd command. And he was utterly, profoundly miserable. He would see Cersei at court during the rare occasions he traveled to King's Landing. She was the queen, radiant and untouchable. The bond between them was a phantom limb, an ache of what might have been. They would exchange pleasantries, their eyes holding a universe of unspoken words. She was trapped in her loveless marriage to Robert, and he was trapped in his. They were the two brightest stars in the kingdom, and they were a universe apart. He had chosen power over love, duty over desire, and every day he lived with the consequences. He was not the Kingslayer. He was not a man defined by a single, terrible moment of infamy. He was defined by 1,000 moments of perfect, soul-crushing duty. One evening, Jaime stood on the highest balcony of Casterly Rock, watching the sun bleed into the sunset sea. His son, Tytos, a boy of 10, was beside him, practicing sword forms with a blunted wooden blade. The boy was clumsy, earnest, and desperate for his father's approval. Jaime watched him, a hollow feeling in his chest. He was a good father, a patient teacher. He was everything Tywin had wanted him to be. A raven had arrived that morning from King's Landing, a short, formal message from the Grand Maester. Queen Cersei had given birth to her third child, another black-haired boy named Tommen. Jaime had read the note and felt nothing. The fire that had once burned for his sister had been banked and smothered by years of duty until only cold ashes remained. He looked at his own hand, the one that had never held a king's life in its palm, the one that had never broken an oath. It was a clean hand, an honorable hand. And as his son looked up at him, his face full of hope and love, Jaime Lannister, the Lion of the West, the savior of King's Landing, wondered if the man with the clean hand was truly any freer than the man who might have been, the one they would have called Kingslayer. Far away, on the volcanic shores of Dragonstone, another boy of 10 was also training with a sword. He had his mother's dark Dornish eyes and his father's silver hair. His name was Aegon Targaryen, and as he trained under the watchful eye of Sir Arthur Dayne, who had been smuggled to his side by Varys, he was taught the names of the men who had stolen his birthright. The first name he learned was Baratheon. The second was Stark. But the name he was taught to hate, the name of the man whose family held the keys to his father's kingdom, was Lannister. The war was not over. It had only been sleeping. And so our story ends, with a realm at peace, but a peace built on a fragile foundation of hostages and resentments. A hero lord sits in his castle, laden with honors and empty of joy. A vengeful prince grows to manhood on a lonely island, dreaming of fire and blood. We leave you with this question to ponder. What is the greater prison? A cell of infamy earned in a moment of righteous rebellion against a sacred oath? Or a palace of honor built by a lifetime of dutifully sacrificing everything you ever loved? The choice was made, the consequences played out. But the story of Westeros, as always, is far from over. Join us next time as we ask another question. What if,